Have you ever pondered the ethics surrounding execution methods? Is there a humane way to carry out a death sentence? These are questions that society grapples with as we navigate the complex landscape of capital punishment. The methods of execution have evolved over time, each with its own set of ethical implications. Today, we'll be delving into two such methods: intravenous injection and nitrogen hypoxia. Intravenous injection, a method that's been in use for decades, involves the direct administration of lethal drugs into the body via a vein. This cocktail of chemicals causes the convict to lose consciousness, cease respiratory functions, and ultimately, the heartbeat stops. It's a method that's been widely accepted in the past, but the tide of public opinion is shifting. The ethical implications of this method, its potential for causing pain and suffering, have become increasingly controversial. On the other hand, we have nitrogen hypoxia. This method, yet to be put into practice, replaces the oxygen in the body with lethal nitrogen gas. The individual breathes in this gas, and as nitrogen takes the place of oxygen, death ensues. It's being touted as a potential alternative to intravenous injection, but the debates surrounding its effectiveness and ethical acceptability are far from settled. Take, for instance, the case of Kenneth Eugene Smith, born on the 4th of July, 1965. Smith, an American convict, was sentenced to death for the murder of Elizabeth Sennett in March of 1988. If his execution proceeds as planned on this very day, January 25, 2024, he will be the first person in the world to be executed using nitrogen hypoxia. This is part of an agreement between the state and Smith, where the state agreed to use nitrogen hypoxia instead of the traditional intravenous injection. As we dive into the specifics of each method in the coming scenes, keep in mind the ethical implications surrounding each one. The question remains, can there truly be a humane way to carry out a death sentence? Or is this a paradox we're doomed to grapple with as long as capital punishment exists? Intravenous injection, a common yet controversial method of execution, but what makes it so contentious? Let's delve into the heart of the matter. Intravenous injection, as the name suggests, involves the direct administration of chemicals into the body via a vein. In the context of capital punishment, it typically involves a lethal cocktail of drugs designed to stop the heart's functions. This method has been in use since the late 19th century, initially lauded for its perceived humanity and efficiency. However, as time passed, the true nature of this method began to unravel, sparking numerous debates and controversies. The process itself is grueling. The convict is first rendered unconscious, followed by the cessation of respiratory functions, and finally, the heart stops. It's a slow, methodical, and chilling process, one that has become the subject of intense scrutiny over the years. The controversy surrounding intravenous injection stems from various factors. There's the question of the effectiveness of the drugs used. In some instances, convicts have been reported to show signs of suffering during their execution, raising questions about the humanity of the method. Then there's the issue of the availability of these drugs. Many pharmaceutical companies, in response to public pressure, have stopped supplying the necessary chemicals, making the implementation of this method challenging. Moreover, the whole process is riddled with potential for human error. From incorrect dosage to improper administration, there's a lot that can go wrong, leading to botched executions that are nothing short of horrifying. Notable cases like Kenneth Eugene Smith bring these issues to the forefront. Convicted for murder in 1988, Smith's execution is scheduled for today, January 25, 2024. However, instead of the traditional intravenous injection, Smith will be executed using nitrogen hypoxia, a new method that has been proposed as an alternative. Despite its widespread use, intravenous injection is not without its issues, leading some to seek alternatives. So, as we move forward, the question remains, is nitrogen hypoxia the answer, or does it simply replace one form of controversy with another? That's a discussion for another time. Enter nitrogen hypoxia, a newcomer to the execution scene. Could this be the humane method we've been seeking? This method of execution is quite different from the traditional intravenous injection. Rather than administering a lethal cocktail of drugs into the body, nitrogen hypoxia employs nitrogen gas to replace the oxygen in the body. Here's how it works. Nitrogen, a lethal gas, is inhaled by the individual. In the process, nitrogen takes the place of oxygen in the body. This disrupts the normal intake of oxygen, which is essential for life. The lack of oxygen leads to hypoxia, a condition where the body or a region of the body is deprived of adequate oxygen supply at the tissue level. This lack of oxygen leads to unconsciousness and eventually death. Just as the name suggests, nitrogen hypoxia is all about oxygen deprivation. But don't be fooled by the technical jargon. This method is not as quick and painless as it sounds. The person being executed may experience distress, panic, and even a sensation of choking or suffocation before losing consciousness. So why is this method considered an alternative to intravenous injection? For starters, nitrogen is readily available and relatively easy to administer. It also bypasses the need for medical professionals to assist in the execution process, a requirement that has been increasingly difficult to fulfill due to ethical concerns. However, nitrogen hypoxia is not without its controversies. There are significant debates surrounding the effectiveness of this method. Critics argue that it is not as humane as proponents claim it to be. There are also questions about the potential for botched executions and whether the person being executed experiences pain during the process. While nitrogen hypoxia might seem like a promising alternative, it has its own set of debates and ethical dilemmas. As with all methods of execution, the question of humanity and ethics looms large, and nitrogen hypoxia is no exception. Two methods, each with their own controversies. But how do they truly compare? When we delve into the comparison of intravenous injection and nitrogen hypoxia, we see a stark contrast. Intravenous injection, the long-standing method of execution, is a direct assault on the body's vital functions. A cocktail of lethal chemicals is administered, targeting the heart and causing it to cease its rhythmic dance of life. This method, while effective, has come under fire for its potential to cause extreme pain if not administered correctly. On the other hand, nitrogen hypoxia presents a different approach. This method replaces the body's oxygen with nitrogen, a lethal gas. The individual breathes in this gas, and as nitrogen takes the place of oxygen, life ebbs away. Nitrogen hypoxia, while still in its early stages of use, is touted as a potentially more humane method of execution. Yet, it too carries its share of controversies. The effectiveness and the ethical acceptability of this method are still under intense debate. Ethically, both methods raise profound questions. Can any form of taking life be considered humane? Can we ever truly mitigate the suffering involved in execution? These are the dilemmas that hover around the death penalty. The intravenous injection method, despite its widespread use, has been criticized for its potential to cause excruciating pain. Nitrogen hypoxia, while proposed as a more humane alternative, is still largely untested in this context, and thus its true impact on the condemned is unknown. In this comparison, we see two methods, each with its own set of ethical challenges. If the intent is to minimize suffering, then more research and transparency are needed in both methods. As we continue to grapple with these issues, the ethical implications of capital punishment remain a contentious topic. As we see, neither method is without controversy. The quest for a humane method of execution continues to be a complex and ethically charged dilemma.